Referees in some grassroots football matches in England will be wearing body cameras this weekend as part of a trial by the FA. Around 100 refs will be taking part. Footage from the devices available for use in disciplinary hearings. That's the idea.
Well, it comes after almost 1,000 grassroots referees told us here on 5 Live they'd been regularly abused or attacked. The Referees Association issued questionnaires to its 7,000 members as part of a 5 Live investigation. More than 900 responded, with 293 saying they had been physically abused by spectators, players, coaches or managers.
Well, we know lots of you are probably spending your weekend either taking children to play or playing and refereeing in grassroots games, and we've received so many messages on this issue whenever we've talked about it in the past few weeks. 5 Live's Lucy Gray spoke to parents at a grassroots match in South London.
When he gave a penalty, he gave a yellow card, but it should have been a red card, definitely.
What did you say when you were shouting at him?
Honestly, it's time to retire, ref.
Do you feel bad about shouting at him at all?
Probably, but he's done the boys an injustice. Obviously looks like an experienced ref, he's older. I feel sorry for the young boys that ref.
Do you think it's all right to shout at the older ones?
Well, today I shouted. It's hard though when you're in the middle of the pitch, like us on the sideline, we've got an overview of the whole game, whereas when you're in the midst of it, running along with the players, sometimes I think it's a bit harder.
I think you know better than the ref, do you?
Well, not all the time, but today, yeah.
Well, on the subject of body cams, we spoke a bit earlier on the programme to Daniel Meeson from the FA.
The function of the body cam that the referee will wear will allow the referee to activate that body cam to capture the sort of serious misconduct that the player or coach is demonstrating towards the referee or match official. The camera has a sort of an automatic 30-second capture, if that makes sense. So, if you sort of exchange a view with me now as the player towards me as the referee, which I actually think, that was unacceptable, and I'm now going to send you off. I'm going to report that matter to the authorities. I can hit the button on my body cam and actually it would have captured the last 30 seconds of what you'd said. But of course, what we're hoping these devices are sort of used for is more preventative rather than cure, if that makes sense. So actually the player, the participant, the coach sees the body cam device and thinks twice before exchanging a view or giving an opinion on the referee's decision.
We did get a much better understanding of how the whole thing will work when we spoke to Daniel earlier on. You can obviously listen back on BBC Sounds if you want to hear more of that interview with the FA on this. The FA says the trial is taking place in England is a world first. We can speak to Andrew Raisbeck. Andrew's a referee respect officer with the Oxfordshire FA. Morning to you, Andrew.
Good morning, Chris. Good morning, Ali.
And also referee Nathan Sherratt, who runs resilience training for referees as well. Hello, Nathan.
Good morning.
Good morning. Right, Andrew, first of all, I don't know, do you feel sad it's come to this, Andrew?
Well, I mean, certainly, I'm just listening to that piece. I think my least favourite cliche would be ref you having a shocker, which I don't hear too often, but it's cuts you to the quick. But I think it's been going on for far too long. The amount of progress we've made around this is simply not good enough, and anything that can help provide evidence that can help us take action, I think is very good. Yeah. It's just that we need to take action to make sure that clubs or players or parents, in the case of junior football, simply reach the point where they're not involved anymore.
What have the efforts been so far before this? You say they're not been good enough. What efforts have there been?
Well, I think there's been, a limited number of sort of campaigns, but certainly within Oxfordshire, what we're trying to do is get the referees to improve the data that we get so that we can identify clubs that are causing us issues. We can then go out and mystery shop, have a look at what's going on, see what's happening on the ground, and then start to take sanctions, which paradoxically might include, in one case, say, giving them more referees, so giving them a proper assistant and 2 assistants and a referee, which they then have to pay for. If we don't make any progress with that, we'd be looking at coaching licenses. We'll be looking at potentially playing games without parents in situ, if that's the problem. Things to manage, because certainly from my viewpoint, I have no problem with the players. The issues I get are with managers who I think are emboldened by what they hear on the Premier League and what they hear from pundits, and from parents like the piece you played earlier, where they feel it is somehow their right to shout at the referee, even though by their own admission they don't really understand the laws of the game.
Now, these body cams aren't going to be able to focus on parents because of issues around privacy and such like. So this is only going to be to pick up problems with players and coaches, which then might be able to be used as evidence in disciplinary hearings and such like. Where does that leave us, do you think, in the effectiveness of them?
I think they're very good for adult grassroots football, where the interaction can often be, and the threat of, in certain cases, physical violence can be very much between the player and the referee. I think there's still action we need to take with junior football, which is around the control of either the coaches, which I would say is probably my biggest bugbear, who genuinely feel that they have the right to challenge the referee. At no point do I run across to the coach and start screaming about how poor his tactics are or how he shouldn't be playing 4-3-3, nor would I presume to do so. But they feel as though they can challenge the referee with impunity. I think that's something we need to take a very clear line on, that it's simply not acceptable. Parents-wise, I mean, the good news is you can't hear most of what the parents are saying when you're in the middle of the pitch. But certainly in some cases, I've had parents who've threatened a club linesman with physical violence. Amazingly, at the time when their team were winning 6-1, but they were calling the guy a cheat. He's a parent volunteer. He's there just to support his child. The idea that he'd be threatened with physical violence is ridiculous, and we need to do something about that.
Nathan, as I said, you're a ref. You run resilience training for other referees as well. Just talk us through that. How does the resilience training work? How much in demand are you?
Well, I think I'm, increasingly in demand because of a lot of the challenges that we're really talking about, that the 5 Live investigations uncovered, that, there's a lot of challenges. And just listening, obviously, to Andrew there, one group amongst many other groups, but one group that I'm working with is sort of quite recently qualified referees who are really struggling to deal with club officials, so coaches and others. They're struggling to deal with managing players. They're struggling to deal with the pressure that parents are putting on them. And, it's a big challenge, that, and one that increases. But obviously, I'm also working with a lot of people who have lost a lot of confidence. If you talk about the adult game where the body cams have been brought in, I think it's a real breath of fresh air, because it's gonna be a real sort of preventative measure against all forms of abuse, really. And I think that it's something that I'm sure everybody really in the refereeing sort of world welcomes, because we've seen it for far too long. That feel, and the word that Andrew used that I really picked up on, there's a lot of emboldened opinions and emboldened things. People feel they can say and do anything towards referees.
Yeah.
And certainly since I qualified in 2014, I've noticed that it's a problem that's become worse rather than better.
If a lot of the problems come from parents, do you think the use of body cams could mean a lead from the front in a way? If there are disciplinary actions taken against coaches, players who go too far, who overstep the mark, who are abusive, if fans start seeing that there are repercussions as a result of that, could it address some of their behaviour issues as well, do you think?
Well, yeah, definitely. I think it needs to be there as a deterrent, because then you've got indisputable evidence. We're not in a situation, and I'm sure Andrew will know better than I will with his position within the County Football Association. But in effect, when you're having a hearing at this moment in time, it's sort of the referee's version of events and the club or the player or whoever's being charged version of events. Whereas what you're bringing in with this body camera is 30 seconds of indisputable evidence. So I think that even though, obviously, as you quite rightly said there, Chris, it can't be used at this moment in time with regards to parent spectators, you do have a situation where they can see it being used on the field of play, and there will be a sort of a repercussion to that, where they'll think, because they, more often than not, they're not going to know that it's not possible for them to be involved in that as well.
Do you think we're accepting that a bit too easily, the idea of them not being able to be used on parents? Grant in Worthing, for example, says, why can't the cameras be used on parents? Even staff at supermarkets have got body cams now, which is true.
Yeah, I mean, my girlfriend is a mental health nurse, and she uses it in her line of work as well, a body camera. But and so I completely understand it, but I also understand it massively from the FA's perspective in terms of the fact that this is a pilot scheme at this moment in time, and they're going to need to see how it goes. It's a big change that they're making here, and I think that, like anything, obviously there's a lot of talk at the minute about things like VAR at the top level and that still being in a bedding in period. Every innovation that you bring to football, no matter what level it's at, will take a period of time to reach its optimal effectiveness.
Okay. Thank you, gents. Much appreciated. Good luck if you're reffing this weekend. That was Andrew Raisbeck, referee respect officer with the Oxfordshire FA, and also referee Nathan Sherratt,